back to the UIA Trusted Partners Podcast. On today's episode, I have Christy Johnston, founder and consulting partner at Magnetic Cultures. Christy, how are you today?
I'm doing well. How are you doing?
Oh, I'm doing great. We have an amazing local business across from the microphone Omni, which always means it's going to be a great day.
Thank you.
Of course. Now, jumping right into things, I'd love for listeners to kind of get to know you a little bit in this and learn how you got started in this industry. Really, what is Magnetic Cultures and how long have you been a part of it?
Sounds great. Yes, great place to start. So I actually have been doing this type of work for quite some time. I would say probably 20 years in the people space. So whether that's really from the recruiting talent side of the business to performance, talent acquisition, those types of things, absolutely love it. But then I really kind of transitioned into building teams and amazing workplaces. As far as that goes, I had been in the corporate space for about 20 years, and I had wanted to really make an impact with multiple types of organizations rather than really just calling one organization home base. It was an amazing ride for quite some time, and I learned a lot of things. What I really wanted to do, though, was get out of my comfort zone and make a bigger impact with different organizations and different industries. And really what sparked that for me is all about, just talking to friends and family who were truly miserable Sunday evenings, knowing on Monday morning they would have to go to work.
Right.
And they were not happy about that. Some of them actually were sick to their stomachs or would have headaches. And to me, that was really just a problem and a sign that workplaces can be great places for people to go every day and thrive. But at the end of the day, if leaders don't know how to create that environment and that culture for their people, that's exactly what they're going to get at the end of the day. Right.
No, and I love that. I love that the origin of all of this and kind of the culmination is all from a place of passion and finding people the right fit. I love that about this. Now, of course, you kind of answered one of my triple questions here, so we'll just strike that and say it's a double shot for you and ask you, what does magnetic stand for in Magnetic Cultures? Because I'd seen that it's actually an acronym there. And I'd love for you to kind of break down what Magnetic Culture offers for its future clients and current clients.
Absolutely. So magnetic really is the idea of creating an environment or a workplace that people are drawn to and they want to stay. And at the end of the day, when we create those amazing environments, people will thrive and ultimately perform for the business. So it's creating that win-win for both the employee and the business outcomes. And when we do that, magnetic truly is an acronym. You're correct. Magnetic Team is a framework that I created. It's a flexible framework. It really marries elements of workplace culture, employee engagement, employee experiences that create that magnetism that people look for so they can do their best work. And when we're talking magnetic cultures, what is that impact we really have? I would say it's all about talent attraction, retention, and creating engaging experiences for people so they truly can thrive.
And I think that's really an added benefit to local businesses that are trying to find the right help right away when they're starting off, because that's a really critical point when you open a new business.
Right.
If you don't have good help around you, it falls apart really fast.
Right. So it truly does. If you don't have the right people in the right seats, and if you don't have people to do the work, you're not going to meet your goals as a business.
Absolutely. And we're going to actually be talking about a little bit here coming up about, the flip side of that coin. If you might be the problem and driving out your business and driving out your clients and driving out things, mostly your workers, though. We're going to be talking about that here in just a moment as well. Before we do, though, you do offer a vast array of services. I wanted to touch on those real quick. I'd love for you to break down some of them for some of our listeners. And what can they really offer to those interested listeners, depending on the service, of course?
Absolutely. So we try and meet clients and customers where they are. For us, it's about what level of help do they need and what are their goals? What are their objectives in seeking help? So what we ultimately do is partner with business leaders to create custom magnetic cultures so they can attract and retain top talent and thrive. For them, it might just be creating that awareness. They're not quite ready to make a lot of real change, but they're in that awareness phase. They need to know what this workplace culture and engagement stuff is really all about and have a better understanding of that. When they move into the acceptance phase of, wow, okay, we really do have some gaps here, whether it's through our leadership, whether it's through our practices, how we operate, there are a variety of things that might happen from that. Then we really move into that, okay, let's create the strategy and execute on that and take action.
Love it.
And so that really helps them. So it could be anything from actually coming in and doing a simple workshop for leaders to help them better understand what to focus on with their teams and how to create that environment and be better leaders that engage their people. It could be that. It could be speaking on a particular topic. Mentoring and coaching leaders is a big part of what I do. But then to me, where I really love doing the work is rolling up my sleeves and helping with doing the consulting. So if they have issues with retention and they really need a solid plan, what should they do based on their situation? Come in and really take a look at the data. All of our actions and execution are based on the data and the plan that's set forth for them. So I love doing the consulting piece of it. And then what I've really transitioned over into in 2024 is being a fractional leader. So most likely a chief people officer role where I'm part of the leadership team, maybe work a few hours a week to really help them drive the culture, but also a lot of leadership practices and creating that environment they need to attract and retain top talent.
I love that. Well, congratulations on your future endeavor with that.
Thank you.
Of course. Now, you kind of actually led into my next question beautifully for this. We hear it all the time. What is workplace culture really? And, what does having a good culture really matter? I think that's a really pertinent question for today's world.
Absolutely it is. And it is one of those nebulous definitions where you'll go out, research it, and you'll see 50 definitions.
Right.
So what I've taken away from what workplace culture really is, to me, simply put, it's more of the personality of the organization. It truly is how people interact, their shared values and beliefs and interactions, those norms that people have, how decisions are made. It's all of those interactions that are hard to capture sometimes, but that's what we do is we really define what those are for the organizations and we reinforce that. If there's a gap between, say, a company says that their core values they're up on a wall in beautiful frames, it looks great, but are they really living that every day?
Right.
Are the leaders living that and modeling that? If not, that's a great place to start because that's what the organization said they wanted to be all about. And if they're not, that's where we really begin.
Love it. Now, I'm very curious, since you would be probably the best person to ever ask this question, is what can really make a workplace culture thrive, and what's something that can make it disintegrate like that?
So culture is multifaceted. It's sometimes a complex thing really to look at. And I love simplifying the complex. I've actually created this framework called the Magnetic Team Framework. It is a flexible lever system. So what we do is we take a look at an assessment for an organization through all of those elements. And so, for example, each of the letters of Magnetic Team stands for an element. For example, first one is meaning. Do people have meaning in their work, from leaders to frontline employees? A is for alignment. Are people aligned to the vision and the objectives of the organization? Are leaders aligned on what that looks like going forward? So there are many elements to each of these different pieces of the magnetic team. Once we have a chance to assess that piece of it, what we do is we pull apart the things they're doing well and continue to reinforce that. But also what we do is take a look at the areas that they can really use some help or we notice some gaps. Those are the things that we create the strategies around and create a plan for them to work on those items.
I love it. Now, something that kind of made me think of that while you were talking was, have you ever run into the situation where you are doing that test to kind of figure out where the gaps are going, and maybe the company or client you're working with maybe already knew or had a pulse on where that gap is, but they just didn't know how to tackle it?
Absolutely. In fact, when we move through, I have a 4Ds process. The first D is discovery. That's all about the data. So the assessment, the magnetic team assessment, really is a piece of data. Other pieces of data are exactly what you're talking about. What do they know? What do they believe? Have they had engagement surveys? Did they do leader and manager effectiveness surveys? Do they have qualitative feedback from their people? When I talk to their people, what are they telling me? So we have a holistic view of what that data really says, so that when we create strategies, it's data driven. It's not just based on a feeling.
I like that. Now, kind of to allude to our earlier point of, sometimes the problem can stem from within. How do you handle having those difficult conversations with a company if they tend to, need to make a serious change from within for a healthier culture, but maybe they have pushback on that?
Absolutely. And that is the case every single time.
I was kind of curious if it was every time or if it was just like, there's ones. But no, every time, really.
Every time. So when we're talking workplace culture and leadership, that is within every single time. So what we do is, instead of me pointing the finger saying, wow, you are horrible as a leader, you are not inspiring, you turn people away, all the things that you might think about people, we just don't approach it that way.
Right.
So what we do is we really focus on what are the pain points that they have. Are they saying high turnover? Are they seeing low engagement from their people? Are people not being innovative when they need to be? There are so many different factors. I actually have a scorecard, and it contains leading and lagging indicators for an organization. And so some of those things will tell you in advance, if this continues to happen at this rate, you're going to see these things trickle down. You have your lagging indicators, or those data points that really show up after things have happened, like exit survey feedback. And when an organization has people leave consistently, what are they telling the organization? True. Is it about their leadership? Is it that they have zero flexibility? There could be a multitude of reasons, but it's really knowing your employees and listening to them and compiling that with all of the other data points that it tells you.
Wow, a lot goes into magnetic cultures and building the right culture. So again, we're talking with expert Christy Johnston, founder and consulting partner of Magnetic Cultures. Now, Christy, moving into another kind of aspect of what you do is leadership coaching and mentoring. There's also manager effectiveness in there, all three of which I wanted to make a mention of, because all three of those tend to kind of fall into the same realm when you're dealing with, leadership, management, et cetera. What kind of training, from a broad stance, of course, if they want the full in-depth, they got to come talk to you to get that scheduled up. But from a broad stance, what kind of training kind of goes into that, and how can companies utilize that once they know the effective tools?
I think that's a great question. So when it comes to leadership, I focus on that quite a bit when it comes to workplace culture and engagement, because according to Gallup, and they do a ton of amazing research in the workplace space, what they've said is a direct supervisor has up to 70% of a direct impact on an employee's engagement.
Wow.
And that is a huge factor when we're talking employees being engaged in their work and the production and performance that they're going to have. So working with leaders, first and foremost, really dictates where we're going to go with creating those amazing cultures, those magnetic teams. So being able to work with them on the elements within that framework goes a long way. So whether they need one-on-one coaching and it's really driving them towards the goals that they personally have, or if they would prefer mentoring, where I work with them on specific things that I've been able to experience over time, where I'm able to guide them based on experiences I've had and connect them with other people who might also be valuable for them to learn from. Those are really kind of two different things. Otherwise, leadership development and facilitation of, say, workshops and group setting is great for specific topics and things they want to focus on.
I love that. And I love that you are able to offer mentoring as a part of this, because I feel like, again, sometimes that gets lost in the business world. You can find somebody to coach you and you can find somebody to teach you, but somebody to actually show you if you do this, A will equal B. you don't want to see C.
Right,
So
exactly.
I think having that in today's world is kind of missing. So I love seeing that that's implemented, and that's a first and foremost in magnetic cultures, really. So I love that. And I love seeing that offered to all these amazing businesses that you work hand in hand with.
Thank you.
Of course. Now, your website is riddled with all these awesome videos on there, one of which is one that says, what sets you apart? I encourage listeners to go, first off, go to the website, magneticcultures.com.
Yes, .com.
Perfect. Go to magneticcultures.com. There, I don't even have to tell you what to do now. You'll find enough to go do on there. But I definitely encourage you go take a listen to some of those videos, because I'm going to have you kind of snippet it here for us today. But what does separate you and help you stand out in your industry?
Great question. I am asked this all the time as well,
Of course.
because there are so many of us out there, which is great, which I call, instead of competitors, my niche mates. It's important for us to learn from each other and build each other up. There's a lot of work to do, so we need each other to do that. What sets me apart, though, I would say a few different things. And in those videos, it will show a snippet of what that could be. So thank you for bringing that up.
Of course.
I would say first and foremost, when I ask other people this question, instead of just me assuming this about myself, they always say that they can tell I genuinely care about my customers and clients and this kind of work. I'm passionate about it. To me, it is a calling that I have. I'm living my purpose to create better impact in workplaces. I also, from an experience standpoint, have been a practitioner in this space for several years. I would say 20 years in the people services and people arena, focusing on great workplaces and building magnetic teams. But beyond that, I also not just have the practitioner side from the corporate sense, but building out a process to be able to work with clients that's simple and easy and helps to meet them where they are. It customizes things to what they actually want in their organization.
What made you come up with that idea to kind of help it be a customizable, to help adapt to the businesses? Because obviously nothing's cookie cutter in this world, besides cookies.
Yeah. I had actually noticed in the space there are a lot of programs out there or services that are somewhat cookie cutter.
Right.
It is an off-the-shelf type of thing. I didn't want that, because when I start talking to people, I'm a very curious person. I ask a lot of questions, and I notice that we have to meet people where they are, or it's not usable or realistic solutions for them. And I want it to be just that. I want the impact for them. And so I want to make sure that I'm meeting them where they are. And with that, it needs to be customizable. So although we have this framework, it's a lever system for a reason. Some organizations will be amazing when it comes to recognition and appreciation. Others with feedback. Others, they have phenomenal communication. But then on the flip side, you could look at every organization and they're going to have areas they need to focus on. And that framework allows consistency. However, with the framework, everybody has the ability to focus on things they do need to work on as well.
I love it. And I think it all stems from a point of passion about what you do. And that point of passion is helping people, which, if that wasn't clear by this point in the podcast, people, well, clean your ears out. Of course, I am so thrilled to have you on the show again. We are sitting down with Christy Johnston, founder and consulting partner of Magnetic Cultures. And again, helping businesses grow each other is kind of the name of the game for you.
Absolutely.
Trusted Partners Podcast. Hello, we had to get you on here. Now, lots of businesses and companies, maybe some that you even work with, they track employee retention and engagement a lot of times. First off, I want to know, and for the listeners here, how important are those to a company? And secondly, what about a company keeps talent retained and happy?
Great questions. Very big and loaded questions.
Very big loaded questions, so break apart those how you want.
So they are important factors. So when I had talked about the scorecard earlier, employee retention and engagement are two of those data points that we collect. So to break it apart a little bit, employee retention, it really gives you a good sense of, are employees wanting to stay at an organization. And sometimes it is healthy for employees to outgrow their organization or the roles that they're in. Also, sometimes they aren't the best person suited for the role that they're in, and that will naturally happen, and they'll self-select out as well.
Sure.
So a little bit of turnover is fine, but retaining top talent for people in the right seats who really want to be there, that is key. So I would say those are very important statistics to make sure we're collecting information about. Engagement, to me, it's really all about the feeling that employees have about their work and their workplace. You can ultimately create culture ambassadors and brand ambassadors for your organization if you do this the right way and you have highly engaged employees. Not only that, but the reason why engagement truly matters is because people who are highly engaged, they will be more productive. They are going to perform. They're ultimately more creative and innovative in their roles because they care about their team and the work that they have in front of them. They're part of it. Also, turnover is lower. I cannot talk. Sorry. Lower. Or people don't call in, absenteeism goes down as well. So people love what they're doing and the people they're working with. It's that feeling of coming in every day and getting after it and being excited to do that. That's going to show up in their work. On the flip side, if they're not engaged, they're likely talking about their work and workplace or their leaders with everybody else in a not so great way. And it's really more of a cancer to the team at that point.
Gotcha. Yeah. And again, negative news can spread faster than positive news, as we all know.
Absolutely.
Now, speaking of that, it kind of made me think of this as well. During your process of working with somebody, now, a lot of times you're talking mostly with owners or directors or higher up officials on that side of things.
Right.
Is part of your process actually doing any one-to-one with employees of that nature or sitting down with them to let them be heard?
Absolutely. In fact, part of the magnetic team framework is having that effective communication. Well, communication is always a two-way street, empowering employees to share their voice and be part of the experience, creating their own experiences. So having them take some ownership and being empowered to create the type of workplace culture that they know and love. Oftentimes when we ask people, they're going to come up with the best solutions for challenges we have as business leaders. So to me, it really is knowing your employees. That is one of the things I work with and leaders to know and really teach them to create that communication, the two-way dialogue, because once they have that, they can collaborate and really work on some creative and amazing solutions to any challenges they have.
I love that. Now, just kind of on a general out there question here for you, is more often than not, do you kind of find it that the gap in the culture building is the communication-based piece, or is it something usually behind the scenes more so than the communication?
Communication is almost always the number one issue when it comes to it, when we really dig down. It's also why when I go through some of the programs that we have and also just the leadership focus and workshops that we have, we always start with communication. And it goes beyond just communicating an idea to your team. It's the different formats that we do it in. Is it effective? Are we actually listening to our people and actively listening, not just waiting to be able to respond and say what we want to?
Right.
Are we able to communicate back what they're trying to tell us? And then beyond that, collaborating together to find great solutions to the questions and challenges that we have. So everybody's aligned and can move forward together effectively.
As a communications major, I really appreciate that. I always made the joke in radio. We would always joke with each other that broadcasters and communication majors are the worst at communication. Ironically enough, sometimes we really are. But no, I love that is kind of just a nice little glimmer of insight for people listening to the episode, maybe business owners that are maybe beating their head against the wall. They don't know what they're doing wrong. They don't know what's happening. They can't keep an employee to save their life, but they don't know what the issue is. I mean, maybe this is a great glimmer of hope to maybe spark an interest to talk to Christy Johnston here across from me at Magnetic Cultures. Reach on out and get some solutions in there. Have that one-to-one with you, kind of have that first opening conversation, just see from there.
Right. Absolutely. That's where it starts. So that is what we always do, is really just get to know each other and what those needs are. Oftentimes it comes down to better communication.
Hey, so let's nip it in the bud and let's get that better communication underway with Christy here. So now, something that does seem kind of fun and educational, both, I should say, on the website here, is Leadership Experience Magnetic Team Builders. What does that entail, and how do businesses get involved to utilize this awesome program?
Well, thank you for bringing this up. It's so funny. We are actually in the middle of giving this a bit of a facelift for 2025. So
exciting.
It is a 3-month project, or basically an experience that we have with leaders. So leaders at any level, if you lead people, this is really for you. So we really break this out into 3 different blocks. The first block is effective communication for the reasons we just talked about. Part of that is going through the Everything Workplace DISC assessment, where it really helps to identify your personality within communication, your preferences. Also identifying those on your team and other people in your organization, what theirs are. So, for example, when you even have a team of people and say you're going to have a meeting, if you have somebody who has a personality that's more of a C, it's a style. So going into this, I won't get too in depth, but that's quite a bit different than my style. So I learned with my teams that when I have meetings, I need to send out the agenda, the purpose of the meeting, questions to think about, so that when we're in the meeting and we have discussions, it's not just dead silent.
Yeah, better dialogue.
Absolutely. Yeah. Better collaboration, better ideas. People have had a chance to think about it. Whereas like me on the spot, I love to be able to talk off the top of my head, but the best ideas aren't going to come that way. And so just knowing what those are works very well, or people that just rub you the wrong way, and me the same. To be able to really look in the mirror and see what that looks like and how to work best with people, that's where the effective communication block really starts, and talking through that for that month. The next month is all about effective feedback, and then also employee appreciation and recognition. So when we're talking feedback, it really is just helping people to know where they are at with everything, being very clear and specific and consistent with that, and also recognizing them for the great things they're doing so they feel valued and appreciated for the work they're doing. The last block is all about really focusing on employee experience and the employee journey at every single touch point. And when we're talking employee journey, it's anything from the time you're offered a job to the time you leave an organization. So identifying those high impact touch points for employees so that they have an amazing experience, even to the point of on the end, say if somebody has to be laid off or asked to leave, that should be extremely respectful. Lots of resources to help them get on their feet or help them with the next step. And people thanking them for the time they were there and the work they did. When we create those amazing experiences all the way through, people will still refer others and friends, family to the organization because it was such a great experience and great place for them to work. That is kind of next level, creating your pipeline of attracting great talent.
No, but that makes sense, especially if you're a newer business starting out, and you got to think down the road a bit if you're planning to stay around.
Absolutely. It makes a huge difference.
Absolutely. And one of the things you had mentioned in there was employee appreciation, and I just wanted to touch on that for just a moment. In your experience and your time doing this, what have you found that really works best for employees to grab onto to feel appreciated?
To me, it has nothing to do with budget. It certainly has to do with being personalized and helping somebody just feel valued. If their leader cares about them, the simplest of things like telling that someone thank you for doing something specific, say a project. You did an amazing job on that project this last week. The impact that it had on our team was XYZ.
Sure.
Just something as simple as that. Something that is meaningful to that employee, which from person to person is very different.
Of course.
I learned my lesson and stubbed my toe a lot in my previous organization where we were used to a lot of great salespeople, and they loved the limelight, the spotlight. When we had big all hands meetings,
Sure.
we would recognize them and they loved it. When it came to some of our support roles, if we did that, they were mortified, and it had the opposite effect, where even if we're just giving them a huge shout out or maybe a little bonus or a gift or something like that, they did not like that. So what we found was what was more meaningful for them was truly all about doing something that was a little bit more low key, something private off to the side, but that it was still specific why we were appreciating or recognizing them.
Yeah.
So I would say it needs to be individual and meaningful. And those don't have to cost a lot of money, but we also need to do those things regularly.
Sure.
So according to Gallup, I think the recent stat is if we're not recognizing employees at least once every 7 days in a specific way, they're not feeling like they're getting enough recognition.
Wow. That's impactful.
Right.
Because just going down the line, it's like how many business owners stop to think that more than a thank you was enough.
Right.
So that's a really good kind of stance and kind of nugget for people to grab onto there. I love that. Now, at the end of the day, business is business, and we all face growing pains. It's like getting a swift kick to the shins, and we all love it, But for all those challenges and bumps in the road and shin kicks, what would you say has kind of been one of the biggest growing pains, or maybe one of the biggest hurdles you've come across?
I would say for me, so far that I've come across truly is just connecting the dots between what creating an amazing workplace can be and performance of the organization. We have plenty of research and statistics out there to do that, but I think a lot of leaders are waiting until they're pretty much bleeding and they have certain pain points that need to be met before they address this, when the best time to do it is right out of the gate and continue to grow that amazing workplace, because the culture game is a long-term game.
Absolutely.
It isn't something that changes overnight. Especially if you're looking to improve it and have that be a differentiator for your organization.
Right. I want people to think about that for a moment. If you are a business owner and you're like, oh, I can just fix it overnight. I'll come in and buy everybody some candy and everybody will be all hunky-dory and I'll say, thanks for all your hard work today. No. I'm going to tell you right now, no. Stop it. I'm going to spray you with a water bottle.
Yes, I'd like to see that.
So it is just one of those, keep that in mind. Take what we're saying, take it with a grain of salt, of course, but get that one-on-one experience. Sit down for that interview with Christy, of course, and talk about how you can help that culture before you have to restart the culture, because that's a lot more work, I imagine.
It is tough to change behaviors once they're ingrained.
Yeah.
Yes.
And it's tough to change people's opinions once they have them as well. So if you're not very looked well upon, we'll put it that way, it's going to be tough to win back your office.
Right.
So that's one thing to keep in mind of growing your own business, of course. Now, business is not all bad. I'd love to know maybe a great pride point or something that you've really come to kind of grasp onto as something that's really impactful for you when it comes to magnetic cultures and seeing these other businesses grow.
For me, I would say it's probably more personal within the business space, is being able to create those connections and relationships with people where I truly become friends with so many of them. And I am a relationship-driven kind of person. I just am very curious and I love to learn about people and see them be the best they can be. And that goes hand in hand with their business thriving. If they're doing it well, and being able to work with them to create amazing places for their people. But I become friends with people in the process because I care about them and I'm there for them and we have great conversations. And a lot of times it creates space for them to be vulnerable and very raw and authentic. And that helps them open up and create relationships as well.
I love that. Again, stemming from a place of passion, nobody else but Christy Johnston here at Magnetic Cultures. You are the founder. You are the consulting partner right now. You have the hat of everything, apparently.
I do.
Yes. So again, Magnetic Cultures is going to help you build your culture the right way. Reach on out. Christy Johnston's able to help you. Again, sit down to that one-to-one. Do that little first meeting introduction. Just get to know each other. See where it goes from there. Now, last burning question here about your business, and then I'm going to torture you with some personal questions. I'm just kidding. They're not that bad. But no, I'm curious, though. What is something that you maybe didn't expect in this industry that personally hit you in a good way?
Yeah. So, I mean, really, to me, it truly is the impact and the quick impact that it can have with people, even just the smallest little things. So through the relationships, through the conversations, and being vulnerable and open to making some changes, just the smallest little tweaks seeing that light bulb come on in, in their mind of this really works. Oh my gosh. And I can be myself and I can be a nice and kind person and feel good when I go to bed at night. So I think just seeing that switch in people and have them light up. And, oh by the way, their business outcomes are there too, and they're thriving because of it. To me, those are just those things that really light me up.
I love it. I love it. Now, before we go into these burning personal questions, anything else for the listeners at home that you'd like them to know about Magnetic Cultures or maybe about this industry in general?
I would say it really isn't about having a huge budget to do this kind of work. I think a lot of people just dismiss it for two reasons. One, they don't have the budget for it. And two, they have HR, which HR is very important, but this kind of work isn't necessarily just HR.
Right.
It's kind of next level HR. So when they say, I have my HR person, but most likely when we look at HR, they have their hands full already with hiring, benefits, payroll, trying to conduct the traditional transactional things that have to happen legally, and they're phenomenal at it. This kind of work truly is above and beyond that in a very strategic type of way where we're able to truly make an impact with the business and the outcomes that we want to see to help that organization thrive.
I love that. Now on to the personal questions here. Of course, one last time here on the business side of things, it is the distinct pleasure of mine to be sitting across from Christy Johnston, founder and consulting partner at Magnetic Cultures. Now, Christy, I'm the weird summer guy in Nebraska. I'm walking around in a Hawaiian shirt and khakis all summer. That's usually me. So needless to say, the air hurts my face in the winter, and I don't like it very much, but there are still some things to look forward to this time of year. Are you in the same boat as me, or is winter, fall kind of, hey, I look forward to it because of XYZ?
So I am in your boat big time. I am total summer, heat, sunshine, long days, all of it.
I will take sweating over freezing.
So yes, I definitely prefer summer. But if we have our seasons, which we always do in Nebraska, then I would say fire pit, beverage, hot tub, round out the evening that way. I think that's a great way to do it. So you can still stay warm and it's still fun, but stay warm as much as possible.
It's like it's that last little hold on to summer.
Yes.
Yeah, unfortunate. Unfortunately, we live in a state where air hurts us for 6 months.
It does, yes.
Now, of course, I lovingly and jokingly call all of us here in Omaha and the surrounding towns spoiled. We're spoiled rotten with all these amazing businesses to go try. Whether it's food, whether it's a venue to go see, whether it's a park to go see because it's been revamped, there's so much here. So I love to ask the question, what do you consider your Mount Rushmore right now of Omaha and the area for people to come check out?
Oh, gosh. Okay, so there are two things. I like to do things and I like to eat and drink. So I would say top restaurant that we love to go to. In fact, my husband is like the norm of this place is Shucks.
Shucks.
Legacy.
Yeah, I've heard great things. Yeah.
And so it's amazing food and just great food, drink, service, the whole thing. And then as far as where we go, we always go to the zoo, whether it's summer, winter. In fact, we prefer winter only because less people are there and you can just run all over the place. It's so much fun. It was also the first place where my husband and I met as friends and then eventually fell in love. So that was kind of our place, and it is always our place now.
Oh, I love that. I'm a sucker for a good sob story, a romantic story. But no, I do love the zoo. It's actually probably the number one answer here on the show.
Oh, really? Okay.
Zoo. A lot of people love to talk about the zoo, and I hear potentially, and take it with a grain of salt, that we might be seeing polar bears again.
Oh, wow. That would be great.
I have missed the polar bears. I haven't seen them since I was a kid.
I know. It's been a while. So that would be amazing if they do.
Yeah. So fingers crossed. Hopefully that's true. So we'll hopefully see that here maybe next year. But now something in Omaha is the fact that we have so much to support. That's kind of the counter of being so spoiled. There's so much out there that's worth supporting, worth the time mentioning. Of course, can't have you rattle all of them off. We'll be here all day if we're just going back and forth. But are there a couple things here in Omaha that you wish people either knew more about or maybe just supported more?
Sure. So I would say I am a huge supporter for an ally for people with disabilities. So Monroe Meyer Institute is phenomenal. Our son Jacob is 17 now, and he is on the spectrum and somewhat nonverbal, but he has been going to Monroe Meyer since he was 2 for therapy. I can't, talk enough in a good way about the people there and the impact that they have to be able to really help with therapy and being able to help people in that space thrive.
Yeah, that's fantastic.
Along those same lines, anything unified as far as Special Olympics and sports and things to be able to create inclusive communities beyond the workplace. But unified sports is a great way to do that for kids and young adults where they can play on teams, have that sense of team, have some friendship, to be able to do something productive and fun. Also something else that I speak highly of all the time.
I love that. Now, I love that it also has a personal connection to you as well.
Absolutely.
Of course, we're all about, here on the program, we're all about supporting local causes, local industry, local organizations. So whenever the case arrives, be sure to send them over to the trusted partners to get a little publicity if they need it, because that's what it's all about, growing each other in the right way.
Absolutely.
Very similar to what you can do with Magnetic Cultures. You can get grown in the right way too, especially with your workplace culture. Christy Johnston, founder and consulting partner at Magnetic Cultures, has been my awesome guest today. Christy, anything else for the listeners before we wrap up the show?
Sincere thank you for allowing me to be, invited to be on the podcast. It's a lot of fun and love getting the word out there. It's just such an important thing that impacts all of our friends and family. So thank you for the invite. This was a lot of fun.
I appreciate that. Thank you for coming on. And of course, listeners, thank you for tuning in to the UIA Trusted Partners podcast. We'll have more coming up next time.